Welcome to Biz Bites, brought to you by Com Together, helping businesses like yours build their brand through telling amazing stories to engage and grow audiences on multiple platforms. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biz Bites. Today's guest, he and I have known each other for a little while now. We've done even a little bit of work together on occasion. Tim is in my words, a bit of a master in systemizing processes and CRMs, but I'm going to let him explain exactly what he does. So, Tim, welcome to the program, first of all, and if you want to do the introduction.
Mate, thanks very much, Anthony. Great to be here. I spend a large parts of my day thinking about what to have for dinner, and then when I'm not doing that, one of the things our company does is we look at how we systemize and automate the customer journey, right? So that ultimately for companies, particularly in rapid growth, we're not leaving opportunity on the table. So we look at pretty much from nose to tail, and on that customer journey, how do clients first become aware of you until how they become raving fans, and then looking at as much as possible how do we systemize and automate that process to allow more predictable and controlled growth for companies.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting area. I know we've spoken about it many times, but it's the reality is that many businesses don't think about that process at all. And even if they are thinking about it, it's very rarely that it's systemized in a way to capitalize on opportunities.
Yeah, certainly, I completely agree. And certainly, one of the things when I first got into business that, kept me up at night was, where's my next client coming from? Where's my next client coming from? And it's a pretty, I think for a lot of business owners, it's a pretty ordinary kind of feeling to have. And the bigger the business you have, the more reliant you are on that, on that predictability, I guess, right? Because suddenly it's not just your mouth you're feeding and food on the table for your family. It's, for all of your employees and their families as well. And it creates this, this sort of burden on business owners on how they, what they're doing. And I've certainly found that over my time in business, it's probably the most important thing to get right. You can screw up your delivery from time to time. You can make the wrong strategic decisions, but if you can't, reliably generate opportunities from your market, you kind of don't have a business. And I found that over and over again, not just from my own experience, but when I started talking with clients and, globally almost, same sorts of pressures and challenges as well. Don't know where my next client's coming from. What am I doing? Kind of forgotten to follow up with somebody. In fact, I just shared with you, pre-call, pre-podcast actually, that it even happens to me still, right? I didn't get back to a client quickly enough, and as a result, they took their business elsewhere.
Yeah, and that time frame has changed so much over the years. It's because of email, because of WhatsApp, because of all of these things, the expectation of a response is almost immediate, and you get that frustration. I mean, I know, for example, I've got something going on, that I'm more on the personal side of things that I'm chasing, and didn't get a response on Thursday, didn't get a response on Friday. Now resorted to other technologies to try and message the person to say, hey, what's going on? Because the expectation is that when you send something, you almost get a response straight away.
Yeah, well, that's part of managing expectations. Both in your system, but also in your, with your clients as well. If you respond at 8 p.m. at night or 10 p.m. at night, they'll start to expect a response at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night. It's not all clients are good clients. I like to say not all dollars are created equal. But those people are sort of giving you an indication of how they want to work as well, right? So if your client starts messaging at 10 p.m. at night, well, they're going to expect responses at 10 p.m. at night. And that may mean that prospect is not really a good fit for you. And you need to set those boundaries and foundations up front to say, well, hey, this is, you know, if we're going to work together, this is how we work. We work, you know, 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. And if you, and if you send something after hours, we'll respond to you the next day. And I think that's an important part of marketing. Marketing for me isn't just, what your website looks like and running some Google ads to it to convert some leads. Marketing is every experience that we have with our customer and with our prospect. To be honest, it's even every interaction we have with our strategic partners and staff as well. In some ways, we are marketing and setting an expectation about how and we operate as a business and what we do with the transformation we create through working with us in some capacity.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It surprises me how many times I've had conversations that I bet you have as well with businesses where they say, "Oh no, we don't do any marketing." So you don't talk to anybody, you don't talk to your staff, you don't talk to your clients at all. Oh yeah, we do that. And I said, "You're marketing."
That's right.
That.
Or you turn up to a networking event. I'm not marketing, but I go to networking events all the time.
Yeah, it's. I think that's the. I think the interesting thing about the term marketing is that it's become such a broad term that it's almost lost its value, because a lot of people get marketing and advertising confused. There's an expectation around, this term digital marketing that incorporates a lot of things, but actually is not really all that specific. I think that, personally, I often, and the audiences will know this, I prefer to talk about engagement more than the term marketing as a general rule, because people understand the idea of engagement and that also can take on many facets. But it is a challenging beast, getting people to first realize what's involved and what they need to be doing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And again, we look at this whole life cycle. If you just, think about it in context of, interpersonal relationships, right? If you went on a date, with your, hopefully significant other, and your first date, you said, "Hello, beautiful. I think we should have 10 kids. And I want them to name them Dave, Anthony, John, Sarah, Sally, Paul, Peter, blah, 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 blah." And away you went. I think the chances of you having a second date would be pretty slim.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay? It's almost like you're sort of taking too much of a leap, and yet we see so many companies do that. Right? It's pretty hard to turn on, log into your LinkedIn account these days without finding, a daily or several times a day, a message that says, "Hi, here are all my services. You should buy them all because we're amazing." Right? There's no opportunity to kind of get to know someone, and date them a little bit before you go, "Yep, you actually, you know what? You're credible, you're likable, you're trustworthy, right? And I know who you are, right?" We have to tick all those boxes, right? We have to be visible. I think that goes without saying. I can't buy from people that aren't visible, but I also need to be likable and I need to be credible as well, right? And it has to tick all those. Your marketing needs to tick all those boxes in order to move people along that customer journey.
Yeah, and it is about understanding and responding. And it is a balance, because something you talked about before in terms of setting expectations around time is an interesting one, because part of the whole process of that engagement is that you might send newsletters out, for example, or generic emails, which people are aware of. And often people will send them in strange hours in order to try and get some cut through. And it's a balance between that appearing as, okay, this is a generic email just so it goes to the top of the list, versus this is when I'm going to get a response from someone. And, so it is all along the way. You need all of these things, but you need them contextualized so that there is an expectation of when you'll respond. I mean, I know many times, as you were talking before, where you see something coming in at a weird and wonderful hour, and you might see it for any number of reasons, and you might even want to respond. But I know personally what I do is if I do respond, which I don't often do at weird and wonderful hours, I'll schedule it so it doesn't actually send until 8, 9 o'clock the next day, because I don't want those people corresponding with me at that time. So you do set the right expectations, but by the same token, you want that engagement flow and you want to respond with a sense of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And it's about building relationships, right? We want to build that relationship until such a time as A, my prospect has the problem, or recognizes and wants their problem solved. And B, we are, Johnny on the spot to fix it, right? But they like it. And it's got to have that symbiosis. I've got to like my client enough to want to solve it, and they've got to like me enough to have me solve it for them. And if we don't have those two pieces, puzzle pieces kind of fitting together, we don't have a relationship that's going to work. They're going to buy from somebody else. Right. So
Yeah.
we definitely need to think that marketing is not this point in time thing. It is something that continues over the course of a relationship that continues to build, right, to the point where, when that prospect has a thing that becomes today's pressing priority. Like I know, for example, you're traveling tomorrow, Anthony, you're about to sort of fly off to Europe. There's a whole bunch of things on your to-do list. And guess what? A lot of those are going to wait because tomorrow's priority is get on a plane. That's the biggest priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So other stuff will wait, right? So that response to the email, the kind of solving that other sales issue, or the, write that proposal, or, fix that CRM, or whatever it happens to be, is all becomes secondary to the more immediate pressing priority. Right. And we've got to recognize that our clients have different priorities to what we want them to have. In the same way that asking your teenage kids to clean their bedroom, you'll have to ask them several times. If you know the secret to getting your kids to clean their bedroom the first time, please let me know. I would love the answer to that question. But more often than not, I've got to ask my son, half a dozen times to clean his room, because whilst it's my priority, it's not his. Okay. And if we think about how the things that we can solve with our business for our clients, right? Just because I can fix it doesn't mean to say that they want it fixed today.
Yes, I think and I think it's a very interesting um, area of that priority and getting a sense of that. And it creates a big opportunity for businesses who do listen to the priorities, because AI has come in, and one of the great things about AI is that can problem solve to an extent. So we've all experienced this, where we go onto a bank, for example, and we've got an issue, and it has its chat bot on the side there. And if you ask the right questions, you get directed to the right answers there. But what it doesn't do is understand priorities, and it doesn't understand variations in it. And it does lead to increasing frustrations with a lot of users. And that creates opportunities for those that are prepared to listen and are prepared to prioritize and are prepared to respond accordingly. So, and I think that was one of the areas I wanted to get into with you, because I know that CRMs play a big part in what you do in systemizing things. And there's certain triggers that happen in order to get flows happening. But it's trying to get enough keywords and things in those in order to understand priorities, isn't it? And to understand where something needs to come out of a flow and you actually need to respond to it in a more personal way. And that's a bit of an art form as well.
Yeah, it is. And just for the people who are listening that don't know what a CRM is, a CRM officially stands for customer relationship management. I like to spin that on its head a bit when we talk contact relationship management, right? So it's all of the contacts in your world. Now, it is just a tool that helps us manage more relationships, okay? Customer relationship management, contact relationship management. By default, we as humans, we like to simplify things, and we simplify the number of relationships that we can maintain at a level of intimacy as well, right? There's a rule called Dunbar's number, for example, that says, you can maintain 5 intimate relationships and then 15 close relationships and, 50 casual relationships and so on. But, if you think about the people in your world, you probably know a lot of things about the 5 people closest to you, right? You know a little bit less about the next 15, right? And they might be extended family members or something, and you don't necessarily know what they did today, or you don't really remember what they have in their coffee, or You kind of know some loose details, but the next 50, it's starting to get a bit vague. And a CRM allows us to manage. It's like an extra brain, really, for your business, right? But it's a communal brain for your business as well. So everybody in your business can put information about the relationships they're having with people into this tool that allows easy recall for something. All right. Now, again, coming back to what I said before about the closer we get to sale, the more intimate the relationship needs to be. So if we can't maintain intimate relationships, it becomes very hard to get to right that point of sale because we just aren't intimate enough with our client, right? And
Yeah.
particularly in a professional services context. Now, the other side of that, of course, as you talked about flows there, Anthony, so I'll pull that out a bit further. We're talking about, workflows or automation. And automation basically comes in three parts. What is the trigger or event that has occurred? What is the action we're going to take? And when does that action going to happen? Now, again, as adults, as human beings, we're good at simplifying things. So the process of going to the shops to get some milk or a bottle of wine or something like that, sounds very simple, right? But because we've gotten used to simplifying the process. But what it actually means is picking up the remote control and pressing pause on Netflix and pushing the dog off your lap and then standing up and then looking around for your car keys and then opening the door to the house and then closing the door to the house and then walking the 13 steps to your car and opening the car door and da, right? So there's lots and lots of actions that actually occur in sequence to achieve the outcome of, getting some wine or some milk from the shops.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's,
And that is the process by which our business creates the same outcome every single time. So your business creates an outcome for the customers that you bring in. And the more systemized we can make that, the more predictable the outcome it is. And that's where systems like your CRM become critically important if you're looking to grow and scale.
yes. And I think that it's an area that is, and you and I chatted about this many times in the past. It's a difficult area to work out the right one to implement for your business. It's not a straightforward one, and anyone that's looked into it will know that there seems to be hundreds, if not thousands, of options out there. So working out what is right for your business in of itself is a challenge, but it does make a huge difference once you've got one in place, whatever one you choose, to try and implement and stick with that and maximize it before you start going, oh, I wish I had this and that, and diverting off into something else, because you can get lost in a lot of features, can't you, with some of these things. And it's what your ability is to use and maximize in the short term particularly is critical.
Yeah, look, I think you've got to you're absolutely right, but you've got to look at what's your core function, right? The core function of this thing is how many relationships do I need to manage? How many people do I need to manage? And what information do I need to record about my clients, right? After that, you'll find that these are just tools, right? In the same way that a car, right? Car is just a tool that helps you get from home to the office, or from home to the supermarket and back. It doesn't really matter what the car is. Some will do it faster, some will do it a bit flashier, right? But the fundamentals of it are still, it's got, four wheels that touch the ground, one that you hold in your hands. If you pull the wheel to the right, it turns right. If you go to the left, it goes to the left. And there's there's a go faster and a go slower. But under the hood, there's 30,000 parts to a car, right? And under the hood of your CRM system, there's a lot of activity that goes into simplifying how you attract, convert, and keep those clients, right? And that's where you work with someone like myself or or another sort of CRM agency or specialist to kind of convert your business strategy into the technology. So you're effectively building a custom vehicle for yourself. Then it's up to you to drive it, because if you don't, right, you'll find yourself looking around and going, oh, I wonder if that other system will work better for me. Or I wonder if this one will do better. Right? It's not the system itself. It's you just haven't learned to drive properly.
Absolutely. I think that is a very good analogy for people to cotton on to. I wanted to explore something else with you, because I know how involved you are in all of these systems and things, but I want to find out what underlies and drives all of that for you. So take me back to young Tim. Where were you at in terms of school, university? What was the dream? What were you going into at that point?
Man, I was going to be a stockbroker.
A
Like I blame
stockbroker.
Gordon Gecko, Wall Street. That was my dream originally. But even going back further than that, one of my first memories, and I don't come from a business family. In fact, as far back as I can sort of find on both my mum and dad's side, there's nobody in business. So I didn't have business mentors in that sort of context. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family, like I guess some people who were in business sort of have had that sort of exposure. So my first exposure to business of any sort was probably my Uncle Scrooge Golden Book, right? That I might have
Yeah.
had as a 4 or 5 year old. And the idea of, if you ever you can picture Uncle Scrooge, the idea of sort of diving into big money pits and rowing my rowboat around it, right, seemed a huge amount of fun. All right. And even to this day, I still don't know what Uncle Scrooge actually does for his money. It's either a trust fund baby, which, admittedly would be a good career goal, or something of that sort, or an entrepreneur of some sort, right? But he seemed to be having lots of fun. I thought this was really cool. And so I tried as a very, very sort of young man in single figures of age, tried my hand at different businesses. That's how I sold eggs and fresh produce at the Alice Springs markets. I don't remember that, but apparently I did. I started a circus at the age of 5, and invited all the neighborhood kids around and charged them 20 cents admission, to dress up and act in my circus, and then spend all my ill-gotten gain on 1 cent lollies and, 1 cent sweets. And that was genius. So I thought, this is great, right? People can give me money and we can have fun doing it. And I found, trying this over and over and over through my sort of teen years as well, this interest in this sort of, I guess, in taking an entrepreneurial enterprise, this idea, and then converting it into, some cases, sort of bags of sugar in the form of sweets, or, into something that I could then convert into something else, was this, for me, a really rewarding process. Right? And it was only as I started to, as I started to launch businesses as an adult, that I kind of had a greater perspective of what other people were going through in order to create their own enterprise as well. So, studied business at school, actually ironically found myself doing IT at uni, and then finance, which sort of, picked up a couple of other buckets for me as well. But, what I likened business to in very much is right, a business, again, as was mentioned earlier, business creates a predictable outcome every single time. Okay? It's
Yep.
not radically different. I find a client, I deliver the service to my client, they get the same outcome. Hopefully it's a really good one that they want to repeat and tell other people about. Right? When when I first started writing code, this is very early days of the internet. Right? When I was doing IT at uni, there was no internet, which is a kind of bizarre concept to think about now. And writing code, it was the same thing, right? We've all seen, the blue screen of death for Microsoft, or the spinning colorful wheel for, on an Apple device or something, right? All that is the code doesn't know what to do next. You've given it instruction and it's gotten lost. Okay. And it's somewhere between line 1 and line 879 million of code that you've written, right, to deliver a consistent outcome. It's gotten to a point where it doesn't know what to do. And if we think about our business in the same context, our business does this thing, right? We've got a customer who's the cursor in the line of code, gets to a point where they don't know what we want them to do next, and they hang, or they disappear, or they go off and do something else, not what the code was designed to do.
I love that. I love how the relationship between finance and IT is that it's either way, it's a very systemized approach. You have to do certain things to get to certain outcomes. And you're right, that analogy with business is the same, yet it seems to most businesses, it almost feels like it's random. And what I see is a lot of businesses that don't acknowledge the systems that they have and trying to work on that, both in terms of their operations, but also particularly in terms of the way they engage audiences. They're not thinking about what's worked and what didn't work and trying those different channels, because that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That if you're using the computer analogy, those spinning wheels and blue screens of death have happened less and less as the years have gone on, because new code has been written to say, people are going down here, so we need to make sure if they go down here that we can bring them back over here, so that those things don't happen and there is somewhere for them to go. And we don't think about that in business enough, do we?
No, not at all. But it is. We want to create a consistent outcome, and certainly, if you want to sort of follow Kiyosaki's model, where he says, you own a job, and then you have a job, then you own a job, and then you own a business, right? And then you own investments. That sort of cash flow quadrant sort of model that he talks about. At some point, we've got to jump from owning a job to owning a business that facilitates the lifestyle we want from it. Okay. I mean, the business is just there to support our lifestyle, whether it's travel, whether it's fancy dinners, whether it's, time with loved ones, whether it's whatever, world changing ideology that you want to sort of do. The business is there to facilitate it. The more predictable the business is, the more likely we are to achieve the outcome we want from it. Right. The business is not our lifestyle, which is a trap that I
Absolutely.
think so many of us have fallen into, me included, and I know you have as well. The business is not our lifestyle. Okay. The
No.
business is there to facilitate our lifestyle. So the more predictable that becomes, the more we go back and review and set plans and say, well, that didn't work last time. What can I learn from that? Right. So that won't happen again. Right. We should be doing that every single client and dialing that process in about how we deliver the outcome, that we promise to our customers. And that's just, that's customer delivery. It's also customer acquisition. It's customer retention as well. We should be, and we don't do it often enough, reviewing every single sales call. I had a sales call today. What went well? What didn't go well? Okay, let's fix the didn't go well stuff and do more of the stuff that did go well, so that next time I've got a better result.
Yes, and not doing those things completely in isolation either, because it is right taking those notes, but not necessarily saying, okay, this worked really well this time, therefore we're changing everything and we're going to make it work that way. Because you also have to recognize the individuals, and you have to recognize that you need a few variations to take a look at along the way to consistently fine tune things. And I think that's an important aspect of this. And it gets back to what we first started talking about, is sort of the listening and understanding of people. And I think in a day and age where there is this sense that everything has to be so finely tuned, and particularly using AI type things, that actually there's a fight against it to some degree. So you also have to be prepared to adapt. And it's certainly something that I've become very aware of, particularly in the past 12 months. And I don't know whether you felt this as well, Tim, that the idea of packages has started to fall away a bit. People don't want out of the box solutions. They want something that is going to be tailored to their particular needs. Now, from a business point of view, it may actually be a package that you've got tucked away, but they don't want it to feel like a package. They want it to feel like it's being tailored for their particular circumstance.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Right. I mean, we need the appearance of customization without necessarily being customized. Right. So we talk about process. I was just actually thinking this. I've put a passage in my the book that I'm writing, which talks about, I guess, your progression as an entrepreneur and the progression of your business. Right, almost mirrors the industrial revolution in some ways. Pre-industrial revolution, it was you as the sole trader. You did everything. You were the craftsperson. You sourced your materials. You turned up at the local markets. You put your table out and you hawked your wares, right? And you did everything. Maybe you had an apprentice to help you, great. But largely pre-industrial revolution, you did everything. Now, along comes sort of this massive change. Along comes machinery, and we replace a few people with a conveyor belt, right? Of people. They do a bit of the work and they hand it on to the next person, and that person does a bit and they hand it to the next person and they do a bit. And then we have the advent of some machinery, and we replace a couple of people on our conveyor belt with some machinery, and then we replace the whole conveyor belt with the conveyor belt itself that pushes more and more and more product through. And the person who was on the line now is pressing the button that says start and stop. And you, as the business owner, well, you're on to loftier ideals, right? You're up in the control room looking at all of your machines running in tip-top shape, right? But we, as business owners, we don't have 250 years to kind of wait for the Industrial Revolution, right? Our job is to get out of that black box, which is grimy and greasy and full of gears and we get chewed up in, and start working on the business more often to do ultimately what I think a business is for, right? To produce profit so that you can do the things you want to do, right? Customer outcomes, that's a byproduct of what our business is for, not the purpose of our business. It's a byproduct. Right? The purpose of our
Absolutely.
business is profit. And so, if we start looking in through this lens and saying, well, what do I need to do to create this machine that consistently and reliably produces profit? What tools or systems do I need to put in this? Which bits are replaceable and which bits aren't replaceable, and replaceable quite quickly, so that I can consistently produce that outcome? Now you can start to see why, your sales and marketing systems become so critically important in producing that outcome of what a business is actually for. And the quicker and sooner that you can get to doing those and refining those gives you this, your competition who's still kind of flailing.
Tim, I just wanted to wrap things up because I know we can talk for hours about this kind of area. Give me just quickly the aha moment that people have when they start working with you. When does that come, and what does that look like for you? Because it is an important one that people will have when they start getting something like this working, and I think often they don't realize it until much later on. So, what's that moment look like for you, for your clients, that you think, gee, I wish they would know that a little bit earlier on?
I think it's a couple of things. It's probably this realization that I've forgotten to follow up with that person, or things are getting a little bit out of control, a little bit out of hand. Right? It's definitely there's an element of desire to grow in there as well. I know I want to grow. I know I've got a great product. I know I want to get it in the hands of more people, or a great service, and I want to transform people's lives a bit more. But I just don't know what I don't know. Maybe it's like I have to give my marketing to my admin girl who's got a great Instagram account, but she doesn't really know what she's doing either. Or I'm hiring this kid in year 12 who can build me a website because it's cheap.
Yes,
And
yes.
I don't really understand this thing. And look, we're dealing with, as we sort of touched on, we're dealing with a space that is so rapidly evolving with AI that we can't lose sight of some fundamentals in there as well that really define whether we're moving in the right direction or not.
Yeah. Tim, we've touched on so many things, and I know that people that work with you, I know the outcomes that they get are so superb, because just seeing those things starting to work together makes such a huge difference. And we're going to include, as we always do, a bunch of information on how to get in contact with you in our show notes. I just wanted to say thank you for being a tremendous guest on BizBytes, and I know we're going to have you back again because there's so much more to explore.
Thanks, mate. It's great to be here and share some of the knowledge with your audience.
Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for the next episode of BizBytes. BizBytes is brought to you by ComTogether for all your marketing needs, so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.